Well, hello everyone. Welcome to Sunday Live. It's good to be here. Welcome to all of you who have tuned in live. Welcome to those of you that are listening to this and podcasting later, or you're tuning in later, or it's 3 a.m. and you're spiraling about something and you found this live broadcast. However you arrived here, it's great to have you here. I am Mark DeJesus, your brother from another mother. It's wonderful to be able to talk mental, emotional, relationship, health, be able to address your questions, get into some Bible study. Looking forward to all of that. We got a little bit of a tropical storm coming through, and it was a hurricane. It's downgraded now. It's going to be hovering a bit over the area we live in, the Charlotte area, while we're doing this live broadcast. So hopefully we won't have any power outages, and hopefully, Lord willing, and literally the creek don't rise too much. So anyways, keeping an eye on that also makes me think of people in Texas that have experienced some very, very heavy, dangerous flash floods in, I believe it's Kerr County. And keep those people in prayer. And if there's anything you can do to be a help, do that. So hearts go out to people there. Stuff like that is just devastating. When it happens, we witness that happening here in North Carolina and things like that. So anyway, want to be prayerful and mindful of what people are going through, while also navigating the questions that you have regarding your mental, emotional, relationship, health. I'm going to get into a Bible study today. We're going to look at 1 John 3:16 through 19. And the subject I'm going to address is, what does genuine love look like? And it's trailing off from where we talked about last week. And this week, we're going to get into more of what love looks like. Looking forward to getting to that. And I'll share a little bit about some things that happened to me yesterday. And maybe be a sense of encouragement for your journey. I'm going to give you a bit of a hands-on of what life is like here in the DeJesus world. Get to that in just a moment. But as you all know, this show would not be anything it could even possibly be. This channel, this ministry work, my life and my journey would not be what it is without the love of my life, all that I cling to. She means more than this world to me. And ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you very clearly, that's not codependency talking. Melissa DeJesus is in the house.
Hey, babe.
So the crowd goes wild. The crowd goes wild. I love the difference between the crowd applause I give you and the level of your reaction.
Right. I'm very like, I'm chill. Wait, I have a new little basket. Oh, I just hit the table. Sorry. I have a new little basket, but we can't see it. Well, I found it yesterday at HomeSense with my sister. Look how cute it is.
It is cute. It's very nice.
Yeah.
I like what you have back there.
I'm trying to make it like a softer looking, Anyway.
I do think that in one of the paintings that Max did, I told him, if you can make that a larger one, that would be a beautiful thing to put put behind you. But we'll see. He's thinking about it.
Yeah, we're working on it. The aesthetics. My aesthetic is chill right now.
That's right.
Just chill. Yeah.
So I think we're all right with the storm. I think we're just going to get a lot of rain, right?
Listen, I think it was going to be a little bit worse. And then our weatherman here is the best. We just really love him, Brad Panovich. And he's just great to follow on social media and everything. And he says it's downgraded to a tropical storm, but I think we're going to start getting rain in a little bit. So listen, you know how it goes here. The creek does rise, unfortunately. And something could cut out. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Or a sun could vacuum.
Yeah. Somebody said something happened to the feed.
What
happened to the feed?
What does that mean?
I don't know. Lynn says it's fine.
Okay. Well, just bear with us. If there's something happening,
just let us know.
Yeah, let us know. But we'll keep an eye on it.
Because that could happen too.
What's that?
The feed. Something happens. Everyone says
always,
it's fine.
I got my eye on the audio. It is. It
looks good here.
It's holding strong.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. Anyway, we hope everybody had a great 4th of July. There was not a lot of fireworks. Normally, our neighbor, there's a neighborhood behind us that's like a newly built, not newly, but I don't know, maybe last 10 years. And every year we can sit on our back deck and watch
Yeah.
They do an amazing display. And they didn't do one this year, and I'm kind of sad about it.
Maybe they moved.
They could have, because people have been moving.
Yeah. They were shooting like legit.
Like awesome stuff. So yeah, we didn't get to see that, but that's okay. There was other people doing stuff, but we couldn't see them. But I'm not one for going out and getting in the crowds and getting stuck in traffic. I'm just not into it anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know that you were ever that kind of person.
You're right.
Yeah.
But listen, I would get a burst, and my intention was great, and we would go every so often and see them.
Yep.
When the kids were little, it was a little bit more fun because they were kind of in awe of it too.
Right,
you know?
right. And we're just like, yeah, I'd rather just chill.
Yeah. So that's the name of our game right now is let's just chill and not fight traffic, because we have to fight traffic enough in Charlotte. But yeah, so that we had a very chill 4th.
It was very, very nice. We had a great time, had some family over, and had a good day. A good day.
We did. Amen.
And then Saturday, I had a follow-up idea because our son Max has his love for dinosaurs and all that kind of stuff.
And I spent the day with my sister. We went shopping. That was excellent.
So I came up with this idea. Why don't I take him to go see Jurassic, whatever it's called. Jurassic,
the new one.
Jurassic Park 7.
He was excited too.
Jurassic Park 700 or whatever that is. And so anyway, so then Abby and our niece Lily wanted to jump in too. So okay, so we all went there, and this was an interesting experience.
Yeah,
because Max usually handles movie theaters fine. We've never had, that I can remember, a significant issue. He gets like overstimulated sometimes during the previews and things like that. Stuff happens. We were able to manage it.
Jurassic World Rebirth. Thank you, Pearl.
Yes. I was just kidding. I was just,
Right.
But
we do forget names.
yes.
Thank you.
There's a problem. Spoiler, it was not a rebirth. It was a regurgitation of, I'll get to that in just a second.
Okay.
So I'll keep the story moving along, but I just wanted to share a little bit of what it's like in dealing with this and some of my processing that I have to go through. So anyway, sit in the movie. It's not really, honestly, it's just not that great. Again,
we have a bone to pick with the people who are writing movies.
Yeah.
They're not doing a great job.
They're not.
Mission Impossible.
The last one. Yeah.
Oh, and we are fans of the Mission Impossible.
I would think that if you're spending $300 million on a movie, that you would have very high standards with the writing and all that. Anyway.
Yeah.
So we're sitting there. We're just into it, maybe about half hour. And we're at one of those movie theaters where you can order food. I kind of like that. The recliners are nice.
Heated seats.
I do like that because seats get uncomfortable at about the 1.5 hour mark for me. And so this is nice. We're comfortable. I'm just starting to recline. Okay, settling in. And so for Max, him and I, we got some chicken wings. They're like buffalo style chicken wings. I go, this is kind of, he's had it before. It's kind of, safe. Now, I won't get into it too much, but parentheses, we told the story about our trip where Max had the massive allergy reaction.
May I add just a side caveat to this?
Well, I was going to, that we had testing done.
Yes.
And he's got a bunch of things he's allergic to.
His allergy stuff came back, and there's
a lot of stuff.
A lot.
One of the things, though, that happened was when we got the report back, which he's done allergy testing before, and we have
little.
We have said when people say what are his allergies, we say planet Earth, and that kind of summarizes.
Because that's what they said back then.
Yeah. But he's been able to manage most things. And except
we just thought it was like environmental, like trees, grass, what have you.
Then we had the incident in Orlando where he had that massive reaction, really massive. We told the story about that. Okay, so anyways, sitting there in the movie, looking at the screen, trying to enjoy this movie that I'm not sure where it's going.
Right.
And all of a sudden he goes, at this kind of volume, Dad, I'm feeling really nauseous. And I'm like, so my first reaction is, Max, keep it down. What's going on, bro? What's going on? I don't know. I'm feeling really nauseous right now. So he's talking that loud. Now, we do have a history in our family. My dad doesn't know how to whisper. And you say I've inherited that.
You did.
Yeah.
Mark's whispering is just like, hey, how are It's yeah. So you don't have the gift. You don't have the gift.
Well, I can't hear most
Yeah.
of what I'm saying anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I remember my dad, like he'd be in church and he'd lean over. I'm like, what's going on, Dad? Your mother is not feeling good. And I'm like, well, I guess the whole church knows. So
And that is the truth. That is what goes on.
your mother, it's like
That is exactly how he talks.
the breath hits hitting,
Yep.
all that kind of stuff. Hey, Dad.
Puerto Rican spice comes at you.
Hey, Dad. So yeah, so there's a bit of that inherited, but I think this because normally Max can whisper. But I think, and well, I really
Not he is a little bit like your dad, because he gets close and he does do what your dad does. Mom,
right,
Yeah.
breathy,
very breathy.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well said, sir.
hello,
Yeah. Stop it right now. I'm dead.
your mother, yeah, right. You need a little,
exactly what happens.
You need a little exhale in it. As well
Max
too.
does that too, and then he's right here in your face, and you're like, "Whoa, bro,
Yep.
back it up."
So he's talking really loud, and all I'm trying to do is get him to come down. But he's like, I think there's chili peppers in this.
Yeah, because chili peppers came up in the very high category.
And I think my throat my throat's closing. My throat's closing. So
Yeah.
I'm looking at him. It's in the dark, but I'm looking at him, inspecting him, and I'm like, are you sure? But yeah. I think my throat's closing. So I'm trying to just bring him down a little bit, and I'm trying to keep it quiet so that the whole theater isn't hearing this.
Right.
And I'm like, buddy, we are you just having anxiety about it, or are you worried because of the last time? I'm trying to
I'm trying to work with it. Then you're texting me. Max thinks he's having an allergic reaction, and I'm like, oh no.
Yep. So phase one was all right, buddy. It was going to be. He just kept stewing and stewing. I could see it in his eyes. He's having massive anxiety. So I take him out. I go, all right, buddy, let's go out. We go to the bathroom. I go in the bathroom, and I'm like, all right, buddy.
Mark's like, I took him in the family bathroom.
I took him in the family bathroom. Yeah. I'm like.
People are probably like, why is this man taking this
Well, it's like
6'3", 6'4" child?
Right. This is a guy that's taller than me.
Yeah.
And and someone's knocking on the door. I'm like, give us a minute. I'm trying to talk. I'm just trying to talk to him.
You're trying to pray with him, right?
So things going on. I'm like, all right, buddy, what's happening? I'm praying with him. I'm like, so I'm looking at him. I don't see any sign of anything taking place. I'm not trying to say there was or wasn't. But it was looking like to me, in having a spicy buffalo wing, he had a reaction, and whether he was having a true reaction or not, it was massively triggering his recollection of that happening before. So as we're moving along, I'm going, he's having a panic attack. He's having a panic attack. And so I'm navigating in his world to try to communicate in his world to try to just regulate and bring him down. And I'm like, buddy, if you don't feel you can do this, we're going to have to figure something out, and we're going to have to take you home. We're going to have to, do you feel like you can handle it? He's like, well, I want to watch the movie. I want to be here. I think, too, there was a part of the movie that made him a bit anxious, too, because it was getting he was getting revved up into, whatever they were, leading to with the Mosasaurus and the Thisosaurus.
Yeah,
and,
Abby said the sound, the audio was intense.
It was very
too.
good. It was very good, but it can also, people can get triggered anxiously just by, movies and intensity and all that kind of stuff, right? So we go back in, sit down, and we're trying to go through it. I'm texting you, and I'm like, who knows where this is going to go, and then he's just like, Dad, I don't know. I think I might stop breathing. Like he went to that
Poor kid.
So I'm like, this is raising to another level. Thank goodness my niece, who can drive, is there, and she had met us there, and which I'm grateful for that, because I turned to them. I said, listen, I got to take him out of here. Keep your phones on you. Can you take Abby afterwards?
Yeah.
Finish the movie. You guys go. That I was really grateful for that, and so I get him in the car. And we're driving back home. Like, buddy, we're just going to have to do this. And he spent a good amount of time apologizing because he felt like he ruined my time. Yeah. And in my head, I'm like, I didn't really like the movie anyways. He didn't ruin it.
We're fine with walking out on movies, actually.
Yeah, the last 3 movies I would say I've been to, I've wanted to 20 minutes in go, I want to go home. This is like...
Yeah, we almost walked out on Mission.
Yeah, I was.
That was really bad.
I was
I'm like, we cannot get this time back.
I was watching the movie, and I'm a very like I want to be engaged. I want to be present. I want to be here and enjoy it, be in the story. And I'm sorry, most movies I saw in the 90s or even the 80s or even early 2000s, even if the movie was okay, I could stay with it from beginning to end.
Yeah.
And be there. In this movie, I actually drifted off. And I was thinking about some things I had to get done, some other thoughts. I was thinking, I don't know, I was probably thinking about some theological thing that I was, and I caught myself and I'm going, oh, wait, I have no idea what's going on. And like, this is what modern movies are doing to me. They're just, there's not this creative bonding with characters and story. It's like thrown together and I don't know.
Right. Like you said, even in the very first Jurassic, it still holds up.
Yes, I could watch the 1993.
You can bond with all of them.
I could watch the 1993 Jurassic Park today, and I've seen it probably 30 times. I could sit tonight, watch it, and watch the whole thing through, and not. I might be tempted to grab my phone, or that's on me. That's my own distraction. But I'm there with the story all the way through. There's just something needs to change. Anyways, so we're on our way home. And he's just up there in the anxiousness, and he's convinced I'm going to. My throat's closing. That's it for me. He's convinced. He's at that stage. The obsession is there. The panic's there, and I'm doing everything I can in my tool belt to talk into his world, how to get there. So I get, I think I called you. And you had your own thing with a tire and something like that.
I hit a curb. They scraped the rims so bad, gouged my tire.
Yeah, so you're
not happy about it. I was like, the tire's going to go flat. Meanwhile, I didn't know Mark's dealing with Max.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think I might have popped a tire.
Yeah. So you're dealing with that. I'm dealing with this, taking him home. And so I'm like, buddy, here's the plan. Here's what we're going to do. And we get to the house, and he's like rummaging around trying to find things.
And you're like, what is he trying to find?
Yeah, what's he doing? So anyway, I'm like, buddy, get your swimsuit on, get in that pool right now.
Well, he's trying to find the EpiPen.
Yes, that's what he was. Because I turned my back, and I'm like, what are you doing? He goes, I need an EpiPen right now. I go, bro. First of all, you got to promise me you're never going to do that where you just go grab it and These are all the things we're going through.
We're working through, yeah.
I'm just like, get in the pool.
Right.
Just go in the pool, right? So I get him in the pool, I get him in a floaty. I'm like, dunk yourself underwater. Go underwater, just do a plunge, come back up, right? And I'm walking him through breathing exercises. I'm walking him through. I'm like, you're having a panic attack.
You're such a good dad. Really, Mark is such a good dad.
Well,
anyway.
In that moment, I don't know that's what I'm connecting to.
But no, I
appreciate you saying that. No, I appreciate that because, sometimes you wonder, like, am I doing what I need to do?
I know.
Right? But I'm trying to walk him through it, and I forgot what I was going to say, but
he's in the pool. You're getting him dunked.
Get him down. So then he's sitting in a floaty, and he's like in this contemplative kind of posture. And I'm like, all right, Max, I'm walking him through, some breathing exercises, bring him down. Like, you had this is what I was going to say. You're having a panic attack. He goes, so Dad, this is PTSD from what happened before. And I'm like, sure. Yeah. You're having a recall of that.
Yeah.
So it's you're hyperventilating. We got to bring things down. And he's like, wow. So he goes, wow, Dad, that schooling must really be helping you. I go, Max, this is the thing I try to explain to you. This is what I've been through.
Right.
So I go, welcome to a panic attack, bro. You had a panic attack today. So
poor kid.
So he's, I'm like, just bring it down, buddy, bring it down. And then after about 30 minutes, he goes, hey, Dad, I think I'm feeling better. And I'm like, yes, I know you're gonna be better. You gotta, in these moments, you gotta trust me that I'm gonna walk with you through this. You're not alone. I could cry thinking about it. I'm just like, you're not alone, buddy. You're all right.
Yeah.
So he gets done. Then he brings Levi in the pool with him. They're interacting with each other. He gets him out, and then he goes inside. He's gonna sit down, and he's gonna and so he's still like not at ground zero yet. So I go, all right, buddy. So what we're gonna do? You and I are gonna put our sneakers on. We're going to take a slow walk because I want to show you some things we can do together. in helping this. We're not going to get sweaty, that kind of like, intense walk. We're just going to go walk up, down to the cul-de-sac and come back. Okay. Yeah. So that's what we did. And on the walk, we had a conversation, and I was trying to just talk to him about these battles and things that are going on. So we get back to the house, and he's landing now. He's landing, and you can see, okay, it wasn't what I thought I was. I'm having anxiety, having some panic. But then for me, as he went and settled down, like my social emotional tank went to zero. Mm-hmm. Like I was like, I hadn't felt this in a while. I felt so drained. Yeah. In my physical body. And I felt myself kind of like, what do I need? What do I need? What do I need? Kind of like searching for something. And I applied what I teach other people to do is, so I just went in the pool myself and laid there on the thing Max was laying on. And I just looked up at the sky and I go, God, I'm not sure what to say right now. Mm-hmm. I've got a whole bunch of squirrely transistors going on, and I'm spent. I'm just gonna sit here and just stare at the clouds, right? And I want to say, who knows how long it was, but it felt like about 45 minutes of just me doing that. And came back over to the deck. And I'm compressing hours and hours and hours, of the day.
What was going on, yeah.
And came back up, and then I said, buddy, why don't you come out and read your book out with me? Sit with me. I'll do some reading. You sit and read with me. And then I think by about that time you came home, I recapped you on what happened to us. You recapped me on what happened with you. Mm-hmm. We were just bringing all that. And then, and I'm just spent right now. I have this like feeling of just absolute exhaustion.
I think too, to add for context, is that in the midst of Max's struggles, he looks to you to mirror what you're doing. What you're wearing, what you're doing,
Yeah, it's true.
So it's very powerful too in what you're doing with him and how you were just trying to help him reset and help him work through it, and then take him for a walk, and then the stuff you were talking to him on the walk about, like, and I'll let you share the rest of the story, but he is seeing and he is taking it in, even though Mark, like collapsing in the pool, you feel like as a parent, I'm sure so many of you can relate. You're like, what are the kids even getting and learning? And then with Max, it's even harder because we go, all right, Lord, we really need your help right now because we don't know sometimes how to help him.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt. And it's like, so if somebody was to be like, hey, how was your day yesterday? Like, you got a minute? It was like, that was the day. It was in and out of that all day. And, but yet you're like, okay, this is worth it. This is worth it because this is what's important.
Right. And that's the thing you actually said to me too when I came home, and I was just like, okay, babe, what's going on? And we stepped away from the kids because we don't want Abby Abby is at that precious age too, where like she's moving into young womanhood, and we don't want her taking that on because we can see her sometimes taking on a role she doesn't need to, but yet there's times we need her to be the older sibling. It's kind of a weird dynamic. But, I was listening to you talk, and I said to you even yesterday, like, you're just such a good dad. You're an amazing dad with him. And you're like, yeah, but that's my job. That's what I'm supposed to do. He's the priority. And even when you said it too, it made me want to cry because I'm like, oh my gosh, we didn't have any of that growing up. Like,
right.
So it's powerful to just watch you be an example with him.
Right.
But then, in the midst of that, we're struggling as parents too on, is it working? What are we doing?
Yeah.
And with him, it's even harder because we don't know.
Yeah. And I think many parents, many could relate to this. There's a sense of like what you're doing is not working because you're looking in front of you. You're like, is this landing? And teenagers, spectrum or non-spectrum, teenagers don't give you signals that they're getting what you say. Mm-hmm. They may 20 years from now, hey, by the way, what you did that day really meant a lot to me, But in the moment, you're like, is it landing? So again, I'm not being dramatic when I say like I was absolutely exhausted, and I go in the house. You and I talked for a little bit more, and because you'd worked out picking up Abby was at
my sister's,
your sister's, and you picked her up and all that. Anyway, so we were catching up, and then I came back out. He was still sitting there reading, And I go, buddy, if you feel like you're all right, you want to go back inside. And so I said, I looked at him and he looked like he was going to cry. And I said, what are you feeling, buddy? He goes, I don't know. I said, well, when I look at you, I see you're vulnerable. You feel emotionally vulnerable. He goes, yeah, that's the word. And I said, it's okay. You had something you had to fight against. And so then he goes, and this is where Max has these moments that make me go, whoa. He looks at me and he's kind of like still in that like somber kind of Max way. And he goes, well, I'm really seeing, Dad, that in our weaknesses is where we really see God showing himself. And I was like, what the?
You're like, okay, he has these things where he just says stuff that you're like, whoa.
Yeah. And so I was like, buddy, you just described most of life.
Yep.
Right there. And this is something that I want my kids to understand too, because there's these conversations that we have where I go, this is where God gets real. Yeah. This is where God gets real. You're spinning, you're having a panic attack, you're depressed or whatever it is. This is where God gets real. And it's like, okay, up until then, a lot of things you get taught in the home or things, they're like a theory. Then your battles start rising up. And I was like, welcome to the battle, son.
Right.
So anyway, then my own processing as a dad too, because I got my own stressors and things I'm working through. And then this kind of stuff happens and it stretches you, like it really, really stretches you. But I wanted to share that because it's like, well, we had a nice time on Friday. We had some great conversations and things like that. And we rejoiced with some good fruit. Just some things that are happening in our life. There's good things that we're seeing happening. And then, Saturday, still some good things that were happening. But it was like in the midst of it, it wasn't an Instagram moment.
No. No. And, watching, children on the spectrum have a lot of obsessive tendencies too. But it's like, in real time, like us having to work out with Max, teaching him the stuff that we've worked through with OCD and are working through too and helping him. And you're like, oh man, that my kid is going through this. And but we had to right after. The problem too is that Max got the list that I printed out of what he's allergic to. Right. So he's obsessing over the list. So then he goes to eat dinner.
Right. Now he's looking at each ingredient.
He's looking at every single thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I had to, buddy, you got to put the list down.
Yep.
We got this. And he's staring at me for the okay. I'm like, it's all right. You can eat your dinner. Yeah. You're okay.
Yep.
Poor kid.
So anyways, that's what happened yesterday.
Was it.
That's our journey.
Yes.
And
so we recover and Dave Jenkins said something really good here. Hold on.
Oh, he always says good
great.
things. Yeah.
We love Dave. Where is it? Dave said reframing inconvenience as an opportunity for growth.
Right.
So good, Dave.
Because it feels like interruptions. It feels like, an inconvenient interruption.
Yep.
And it's like, no, it's...
This is what's needed right now.
Yeah.
Yep. So true.
So would you like to take a moment and greet everybody? And
I certainly will, sir.
Here's the plan. We'll have you greet everyone. I'll get into 1 John chapter 3, verse 16 through 19.
Okay.
Then I'll take some questions. If the power's still on.
I don't.
No, I think we'll be fine.
I don't hear anything.
I think we'll be fine. Well, let me get your chat greet music. Can I do that?
Please do.
Let me get something to drink.
Okay. Hello, Facebook. Welcome to everybody watching on Facebook. Cindy Poole, how are you, my dear? Welcome, Facebook. Let me go to Rumble. Courtney Laws, hello. Mr. Janata, Fit Lion, hello. RRB. Katie, welcome. All right, let me go to YouTube. David Janice, hello and welcome. Craig, Mr. Time Walker, hello. Abe, welcome. Lori Livingston, Pearl. We're going to put Pearl and Estelle in the lovely Pearl and lovely Estelle category. I feel like that just works.
All right.
Angela from Texarkana, hello. Tamalala, hello from New Zealand. Matt and Nelly, hello. Ellen. Art by Victoria, welcome. Oh, hold please. What happened here? Let me go back up. Where am I? Reading for Rest. I got it.
All right.
Dave Jenkins. Hello. Sue Horn, JTF. Hello. And welcome from New Brunswick. Miss Hibiscus. Hello. Miss B. Marion Mears. Hello. Vanessa Chavez. Meg VC. Jesus Christ Saves from Oregon. Hello. Let me go down. Rachel Grace. David Kelly. All right. I'm going to go. Hold on. Lynn, welcome, Lynn. Lynn is added as a moderator and helping me in the chat. So welcome, Lynn. Lovely Estelle, Evan, Desiree, Katharina, Ethan, Sarah, Rachel. Let me go up. Joseph, hello, Joseph. Irina, Tan Man ASMR from Missouri. Hello, Shelly, Rox, Tyrus, Marty, Narnian, Augustine, Smiling Heidi. For the love of God, hello, Mo. I love that. Rose. Lindsay. Listen, I think I got everybody. But if I didn't, Melanie Walker, hello. Kimberly, hello. Angela. It kind of works as I get towards the end because everybody hits me with a hello so I can say their name. Lusanda, hello from South Africa. Listen. Welcome, everybody.
Yeah.
And if I missed you, I am sorry I missed you, but we're so glad to have you here and welcome. Hi, Ariana.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. Well done, my dear.
Finish with a shoulder shake.
Just because I want you to, say her name. Go ahead and you can bring out the super chat, because.
Oh, Miss B. I like it.
I can address that.
Okay. What are your thoughts on backsliders, a backslider, and if they are saved even though they walked away? Thank you for your ministry. Blessings to you and your fam. Well,
I'll get into more questions,
those
but
backsliders.
I'll go ahead and address that one. But feel free to post questions in the super chat. We'll keep an eye on them. Okay, to answer briefly, the term backsliding is a term that kind of modern Christianity made up. It's a term that we created. And a lot of it is based on somebody is in their journey and they are, they're a believer, and then they see themselves falling into sin patterns or deeper into sin patterns, or you name it. And so then there's this sense of like, okay, I want to come back to God. I want to be more aware of God. So we kind of frame the story as, oh, you backslid and you came back to God. I challenge that kind of simple black and white framing of it. Did you really? Did God depart from you and now you're back? Because the whole story kind of based on how well you were doing, how well you were behaved or not. And so then it throws people into the spiral of, I lost my salvation, or you were never really saved to begin with. Those are one of the two answers that are given to you. I see more nuance to the journey because I see God's amazing power, his patience, his grace, and his faithfulness. When we're faithless, he's faithful. There's aspects to his nature that are more powerful than we realize. So when I hear many people's story, and sometimes they'll say, yeah, because I backslid, and the way they frame the story, I go, was that really what it is? Or were you brokenhearted and grieving and because of that, there became some inroads of these sin patterns to get a grip in your journey? Did that mean God unplugged? Does God unplug when we're not aware of him? It's like as a believer, if you're in a season where you're just not as aware, you get busy, you get all this, does that mean that God's departed? And I think that we push some of those narratives, and I challenge that. I challenge that because I think sometimes we're making man-made structures of what it looks like. However, there are strong words of people falling away, especially in the last days, those kind of things happening, or people to make a very, very hard-hearted Pharaoh-like stance of hardening themselves against God. The problem is that there's many of you out there that put yourself in that. because you don't feel as connected to God. You feel disconnected. So you insert the very intense, hard scenarios. OCDers are notorious, especially for putting themselves into worst case scenarios and placing themselves in it. And it's a pattern of distortion that we need to work on, because it's catastrophizing where we're at. And so then it doesn't put it into a healthy perspective. So, Miss Bay, I couldn't do it as high pitch as you do.
Miss Bay.
There you go. I should have a button for that.
I know, right?
that I put into that. So, all right, let's take some time and we'll try to address some questions here in a little bit. But I want to do something that I love doing, and that's get into opportunity to share the Word of God, to walk through it. And I pray that in the way I share it, and I can model some fruitful steps for you in your journey. We're going to look at 1 John 3:16, not John 3:16, but 1 John 3:16, 17, 18, 19. My goal is, in letting this wash over your heart, is to look at what does genuine love look like. And I'll read through the 4 verses, then we'll go through them line by line, break it down a little bit. And I hope that this will be encouraging for your journey and what you're working through. Because I find as I'm going through this, years ago, I put some thoughts together if I ever did a Bible study on this, but going through this week by week, it's really encouraging my heart to just stay on this journey and keep growing in what love is and the power of it. And I want to encourage you all to in that same thing. Anyways, got verse 16 up there. By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us. And we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. And verse 17 here. But whoever has this world's goods and sees his brother in need and shuts up his heart from him, how does the love of God abide in him? My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. Verse 19. And by this we know that we are of the truth and shall assure our hearts before him. All right, so let's walk through this line by line a little bit and get a little insight. Because again, John takes the aspects of love and looks at it in so many different angles to help us see, so that the Word of God is made flesh in the sense of in real day-to-day life and living. So let's go back to verse 16. By this we know love, because he laid down his life for us, and we also ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. So one of the aspects we need to understand about the nature of true love and what love really looks like is it has a willingness to lay down your life for someone else. It's sacrificial. It is willing to act in a way that is sacrificial towards someone else. This points us to the ultimate expression of love in all of history, which is Jesus Christ living here on this earth and giving of his life. That's the prototype that now the apostles live under, and they're bringing that to the rest of the body of Christ. So John is wanting to take this mindset and let it be imparted into our thinking, into our perspectives, so that we will learn how to love our brothers and our sisters in very powerful ways, because you'll see John over and over again bringing in about loving your brother. So he's really bringing out, we got to do this work within the body, as we interact with each other, on what it means to grow in love. Now, there may be some that read into this with black and white, kind of highly literal lens, meaning, and I bring this out because I've seen this come up with people as I do mental health work and coaching, that they need to like somehow self-destruct or bring harm to themselves, or if they don't literally die, then there's no meaning for this. You need to receive the heart of what's being said here. Because Paul the Apostle even said, you could give your life to be burned in 1 Corinthians, is it 13 or is it 12? You could get, or at the end of 13, you could give your body to be burned and have not love. And for years, I've taught on that passage, and I've paused to ask, wouldn't we in mankind go, wow, somebody giving their body to be burned? Wow, that's a literal sacrifice. And Paul's like, no, that's not love. That is a extreme expression of someone trying to earn God's love, prove that they have that they're righteous, try to some magnanimous attempt as a way to get heavenly reward or heavenly approval. It's interesting, right? People can do very radical things, not from love, but like for love, to try to get some sense of like, God, I hope this will make you happy. History is full of examples of this, of people doing self-destructive, self-mutilating, I think even historically Christians have done this thing where we beat ourselves up and we think that that gives glory to God. And I see that more and more being broken of people. So that's not what this is talking about here. It's talking about a sacrificial mindset and of giving of your life. It's exemplified the most in marriage, where the Bible says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself for her. So it's husbands having a mindset of loving your wife in such a way that is sacrificial to serve her heart, to find how she connects to love best, meeting her in that, and not seeing her areas where she struggles or areas she's weak as something to be fixed first, but instead of something to serve and love her in that and have a compassionate heart. And so John's also bringing out here too that when you experience love, it frees you up from a lot of the hangups of self-survival that we live in. Because of our brokenness, we get consumed with protecting ourselves, trying to guard ourselves. We're just constantly doing this stuff to, I don't want to get hurt. When love has a work in our lives, it starts to free us up. It frees us. It kind of reminds me of where Jesus says, if you want to save your life, you're going to lose it. In the sense of like self-survival and trying to keep all these things together, trying to control everything. When his love has a work, it frees you up. It frees you up to give of yourself without being obsessed about trying to self-protect. And so John's bringing out the power of sacrificial love that changes the dynamic. That when we all, as the body of Christ, look at each other and go, you know what, I'm going to learn how to love you. I'm going to take that step. I'm going to face my fears and learn how to love you. And to have that mindset that I'm willing to learn how to love you in the way that Christ modeled. And of course, it's a journey. We're on a continual journey of this. And I believe it starts in our marriages, it goes to our children, and it extends to our brothers and sisters in Christ. Because every day in our home, we have the opportunity to practice this. So otherwise, we get caught in a lifestyle of, I got to look out for me. And all of us can have that to an extent. It comes from our broken experiences where love has been compromised, it's been damaged, it's been twisted. And so in that, we self-survive. And we put up blockades. And instead of boundaries, we've got huge barricades and huge prison walls that we've got set up as a way to, because the pain and the heartache, and that's why heart healing is so needed in our lives, because it helps open up some of those areas. I know even in church ministry and life, there has been times where I've just been like, you know what, I just got these walls boom, 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 that I got up. And over time, I just start realizing, okay, it's understandable. It's understandable. Yeah, that self-protection, get it. But you also don't want to imprison yourself, because many of our self-protective mechanisms can imprison us from what we actually want, which is connection. But we become walled off. I don't want to trust anyone. I don't trust anyone. People are crazy. People are this. People are that, right? We start blanket statements. And so this has been a lesson in learning to keep having a tender heart towards the body of Christ, to keep having a growing compassion, a place of grace in your perspective in how you relate to people. And so what does that sacrificial love look like? Well, John shows us, because many times we can take scriptures like this and make them so big and divine and so out there that we don't have actual boots on the ground in what this actually looks like. And he explains it in verse 17. He says, whoever has this world's goods, so you got stuff. You got supply, you got some money in the bank and extra, you've got property, you got food, you got that, you got some and then some, right? You got something and you see a brother in need, but you shut up your heart from him. How does the love of God abide in you? He's bringing a rebuke to us as believers. You have an opportunity and someone's in need, and you go, oh, bless your heart. I'll pray for you. I'll keep you in prayer. And that's where John will address later. That's where talk is cheap. So he's bringing a strong word because love is always looking out of how we can bless and help a need. It's very, very practical. And in this passage, you see two things. Number one, if you have the goods, he's not asking you to give of something you don't have. Okay? So if you don't have the money, if you don't have the good or have the food, he's not asking you to give of what you don't have. Number two, it's a clear need a brother has. And the command in scriptures is we're called to take care of each other. We're called to look out for one another. Eyes up, looking out. Be aware. Is there something I can help with here? Right? Is there a need I can fulfill? Sometimes that need, too, is just an ear for someone to listen, to talk. But many times love is very tangible in the sense of like, here's a check, here's some cash, there's nothing in return. I don't care. Here, be blessed. Be blessed in that. There's that freedom that's there. And many of you that have given financially to someone, where you just put that check in an envelope, or you gave someone a Pentecostal handshake. There's a freeing thing within that of like, this stuff doesn't own me. Here you go. It's that generosity that the apostles were always talking about. We often see giving through the lens of like an offering bucket being passed. It's a very limited view. And then we get lost in these like tithes and offerings arguments and like, should we not, right? When really that's an aspect we could talk about. But in day-to-day life, it's a spirit of generosity. I just want to be someone that's mindful. I see a need. Is that something that I could be a help with that I have? Right? Now, I know some of you get compulsive about this. You feel like you have to solve everything. You have to, and so you do things out of this agita, out of this anxiety, or out of this feeling that you're trying to relieve. That's not love. Love has freedom in it. Love has freedom in it. Where it's just like, I see a need. I just want to bless you. I want to be an extension of God's heart in any way I can. I've been, and I think that when you go through hard times too, you have a sensitivity, because where all of you can be very effective in loving others is where you weren't loved. I feel like in my journey, I went through some very, very painful seasons of hardship. And I remember talking to people who could have solved it, really, in the sense of like had a vast, accessibility to goods or finances and things like that, or opportunities or whatever, and just didn't. Now, I have had to go through my own journey. I've had to go through, forgiving those people, walking through the pain of it, healing, and then also seeing too, like, I learned some things in my own journey. And if I didn't go through those hard times, I wouldn't have learned many of the things that I've learned. However, in that, I have radar for that when I talk to people. And I think my wife would agree as well, too. We have radar for that area. So the Bible says, do unto others, in it's speaking to do unto others as you would have them do unto you, right? Let's look at that equation for a second. Do unto others as you would have them do to you. What would you have people do to you? Let me start with that question. You could even in the comment section or even in your own heart right now as you're listening to this. What do you wish people would do towards you in the name of love? What is it? What do you wish? Do you wish that people would listen to you? Do you wish that people would be more generous to you? Do you wish that people would be more helpful in resources, more helpful in empowering feedback? Okay, now that we answered that question, what you wish you had, go be that for other people. Go be that for other people. That is actually a big part of God's redemptive work, is that you actually be for others what you wish was given to you, which is the basis for pretty much everything that I do in my ministry work. I make videos, audio, and written material that I wish I had and I wish I could access when I was at my worst stages, or even at not necessarily worst stages, but just needed some help and some equipping. It formed everything I do. And so for many of you, where love didn't show up from somebody, or somebody's, and they shut their heart towards you, and they did not show the love of God, you can actually turn that in grace to be a redemptive voice to future generations by you being what you weren't given. So something to think about, because this love is very practical in how it operates. So he says, I'm looking at the situation. How is God in this? It's just right in front of you. There's a clear need. You have it, and you shut your heart. That's a very strong statement. That's a very strong statement. Usually what's shutting the heart up, it's usually a massive bitterness kind of offense thing of like, boom, blockade gets put up. So he says this, and this brings us to a very important precept and understanding about love. My little children. Again, do you hear the language? Do you hear the fathering language here? My little children. This is like gentle, powerful. So this ought to help you in reading through scriptures too. Pay attention to language, because language can tune into the heart of what he's trying to do here. I think a lot of times we read the Bible like we read a social media post, right? You know, you kind of like read a post, you kind of read it with an angry tone to it. And maybe it's written in an angry tone, or maybe you're just used to it. And sometimes if you just change the tone, you might get the meaning a lot better. Just saying. My little children, let us not love in word or in tongue, but in deed and in truth. Now, right up front, let me say what this passage is not saying. When we look at context of the scriptures, it's not saying don't speak love. Love is very, very powerful when it's spoken. We need it. We need to hear that we are loved. We need to tell others we love them. It's a powerful way that love shows up. In fact, one of the big areas of heart healing I realized was I didn't hear love, and I needed to hear love, and it had a massive impact on my realization for what my heart healing journey needed, okay? But what John is bringing up here can be wrapped in a modern saying that we can often say, talk is cheap, okay? In the sense of talk is really cheap. It doesn't have value if it's not accompanied by action. Because in society and life, there can be a separation between what is said and what is actually done. Again, John makes heavy statements against hypocritical behavior. It's a big part of what he tackles in this book, is self-righteous, hypocritical behavior. So many of us, you never heard the words, I love you growing up. It's affected you deeply, and a realization of needing to hear it. In addition, there are many of you watching this where you did hear the words, I love you, but you saw the opposite demonstrated. You heard love, but addictions were working in the house. And all that comes with that. You heard love, but it wasn't followed up with actual activity. You heard love, but it was in follow-up to guilt and of not showing up and not being there. You heard I love you, maybe some money was given to you, but it was guilt money because a parent wasn't really there and they're just feeling bad, so they're just trying to patch it up. And John is addressing this. Hearing the words of love, but you witnessed words and actions that spoke the contrary. In my book, Exposing the Rejection Mindset, I tell a story that has forever stay embedded in my life. It was a young man, I'm going to call him James. And I was at a meeting where I was teaching on the love of the Father. And I had felt to just take some time to pray for everyone that night. It wasn't a large group, maybe 40 people. And I prayed for everyone one by one. By the end of the night, we were all bawling because it was just a sense of God's heart as a father that was ministering to their lives. And there was one person that I walked away going, it's interesting. It just did not register. So I made a note of it. I was more curious. Had a conversation with him later on. I said, hey, tell me a little bit about what you thought. And he said, it was really good. And when you were praying over me and when we were engaging those words, it was great. He said, but my dad told me he loved me all the time. And he told me the story about living with his mom, and his mom and dad split up. And he said over and over again, he would tell me about how he was going to come visit. And he's going to, I'm going to see you on Friday. I'm going to come pick you up. It's going to be great. It's going to be great. And he'd bring it, hype it up, and make everything, this is going to be awesome. And he said, I would sit on the front step and I would wait for him, and the time would come and he wasn't there. Now it's 5 minutes past, 10 minutes have passed. And my mom's shaking her head because she's like, I'm sorry, James. He's just not going to show up. He's not going to show up. No, he's coming. He's coming. He's going to be there. His brain is just picking up the sense of hope. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And then it wouldn't happen. And an hour would pass, and he's still sitting there waiting, hoping maybe his dad's just late. And wouldn't happen. And then it dovetailed right into another aspect of his story, because he was a teenager. He was significantly overweight, and he was talking about his struggles with food. And he said, well, I'd go in my room, and right under my pillow, I'd have a stack of candy bars there. And I would grab the candy bar, and I knew I at least had that. And that's how I'd get through the night. So within 5 minutes, I want to say 5 or 10 minutes, he had let me into his journey. And I appreciated and I respected him sharing with me basically this: Mark, yeah, I heard love, but talk is cheap. What he needed somebody to show up in love and be an example of what love looks like. That's the kind of stuff that John is saying here. Love, and he brings out two things. He brings out deed and in truth. Deed, speaking of action, where love is shown in how we treat people, how we help people, how we live our lives towards them, having love as a very high value. And two, we love truth. We anchor ourselves in truth. We invite others into the power of truth. And this separates us from the world when the world talks about love, because the world talks about love and they redefine what it means and redefine the values and redefine whatever it is or whatever you want. Where John's like, no, we don't live in that matrix. We live in a kingdom where we value the truth of God's word and we wrap it around the love of God. That's why when we speak the truth in love. That truth, without the conduit of love, it can get lost, and it doesn't have the effect it's needed. It can even move into accusation and condemnation. It needs the conduit of God's love for it to be the effectiveness that it needs to be. So it's not just love by itself. It's not just truth by itself. They're working together. God meant the body of Christ to live in a culture where we value love, treasure love. We live in it. And we learn and we grow. We develop maturity in knowing how to speak to each other, how to encourage each other, how to edify each other. A word that's used a lot in the New Testament, edification, the building up. Living in truth and treasuring truth so that we're sharpened. You see, my life is meant to be sharpened by interacting with you. By seeing the work of God and the way that you grow in love and you grow in truth. And it has just even having a conversation and seeing that fruit is meant to sharpen me and I in you. But it all needs to be rooted in relational love, that truth. And of course, Jesus identified what the truth does. The truth sets us free. That's a whole subject in itself. I always talk about rooting believers in the truth that sets them free. And many of us get entangled in a bunch of twisted kind of mindsets that try to appear as though it's truth, but just keeps us more in bondage. So John says, all right, living in this kind of pattern where you love and you act in love, you grow in love, and you keep growing in love, which we're all on a journey on, and you allow the truth of God to just keep grounding you deeper and bringing maturity. He says, by this, we know we are of the truth and shall assure our hearts before him. So many of us, many of you watching, struggle with having assurance. And so you look for reassurance, right? It becomes a compulsive activity in your life because you never feel like you can land. You never feel like you can have a sense of like, am I all right? And a big part of the journey of what we're realizing, it's not the only thing, but it's one big part of it, is realizing we don't know what it means to be rooted and safe and received and held in what love is. That's why for many of you, you're on a journey of what does love look like? What is it? and learning what love is not. So much that I talk about because it's so important. He's like, just living in this realm of love, this assures us we're walking in the right path. We're walking in the truth. We're walking in the path that we need to walk in. Because learning and growing in the love of God helps us to get anchored in that truth that sets us free. So I want to leave you with a couple aspects of application, because next time I'm going to get into the number one battle that actually keeps you from walking in assurance. And you could actually read the next verse and find out for yourself what it is. A common topic that I talk about has to do with condemnation. But what I want to give you is just a few practical applications for you to walk away with in your journey, and take these and just marinate over them and let them just wash over your heart. In your journey, be aware of chronic self-preservation, hyper self-protection when it comes to how you relate, where your boundaries become these just like blockades. It doesn't let anyone in. It doesn't let anyone have an opportunity to love you or for you to love them. Just be aware of this. It's not something to, fixate on or condemn yourself, but just understand from our brokenness, we can focus so much on ourselves, trying to preserve ourselves. We get lost in ourselves, and the flow of love doesn't have an opportunity to open up, because love is a flow. God loves us. I receive that love from him. Out of that, I love my neighbor. And that's designed to be heaven's flow of love through our lives. Okay, so that's one. Two is be available to bless in simple ways. Simple ways. See the beauty of God in the simple moments of loving in an actual practical way. It's not out of what you don't have, out of what you have. Peter even said that himself. He said, silver and gold I ain't got, but what I do have, I give to you. That's kingdom mindset. So in that, let's not just speak love, because I want to remind us it's important that our words, we are in a desert land where people are needing to hear that they are loved in meaningful ways, but show it. Ask yourself, what does love look like in my relationships, in my relationship world? Many of you are on your journey where you're learning what love is not, and you had to untangle from that. It's not all that guilt stuff. It's not all that codependency stuff. It's not all that compulsive, like trying to just make yourself feel better, of learning what love looks like and showing it. That I would treasure the truth, that we as believers encourage one another and treasure it. Because sometimes when you see the world system and where it's going, you can feel like you feel like you're crazy. You feel like, what's wrong with me? I'm in this echo chamber of hearing all this stuff and combating God and who he is and hardness against it. That we keep each other anchored in the truth and encourage each other in it. And that I would just keep growing in what love looks like and keep practicing it. This is going to help us anchor ourselves and move us more in greater assurance. Hey, we're on a path that from glory to glory, healing and freedom is happening. It's recalibrating our hearts. And like I said, in the next one, I'm going to get into the number one area that wants to hammer at believers in keeping us from being able to land in the grace and experience that love in a more beautiful and more practical way. And I'll get to that. But Father, I pray in Jesus' name, help us to just let this settle into our hearts in a fruitful way. We would appreciate love, want to live in love, and show it, because it really does change lives, and it is worth it. So I thank you so much for it. In Jesus' name, amen. Going to take a break and be right back with your questions. right, going to get into some of your questions. Looking forward to doing that. First, I want to read a thank you that was sent in, and you'll know who you are when I read this. She calls herself a nearly, almost former spinner Spinnerton.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. Thank you, Mark and Melissa, for being such wonderful people and for trusting God with all of who you are. I listened to your recent video on the one question you won't answer. I'm brought to tears. Your teaching have helped me to not be impatient in the journey and to accept the journey mindset. Particularly towards the end of the video, you talked about freedom in stages and how things can come back, but it's an invite to go deeper because we have better tools now. That's exactly how I'd put it. I had one of those once in a decade, wild and crazy, intrusive thought spirals about 2 months ago. It would have taken me out 8 years ago and sent me into major compulsivity. But this time, I breathed, gently redirected my thoughts, and gave myself a lot of grace. I was a very tired young mama that day. Thanks to the tools that you share, I brought that from a level 9 emergency to a level 2 within 24 hours and gone within a week. Absolutely amazing. But the part that really moved me was when you said, appreciate the journey you're on. You have a beautiful journey. It's very, very special. You have a collection of battles, things you've come from, things that you face. You said to celebrate the miracle I am. And it is true. I've overcome a lot. I began to cry. I really needed to hear that today. God has been gently inviting me to grieve some things from my teen years that carry an immense amount of shame and confusion. I have grieved, but I think you might agree that grief is layered as well. Yeah, I would agree with that. And can randomly show up. Yeah. Even decades later when you think you processed it. Yep, that's very, very true. So thank you for reminding me to celebrate how far I've come and how God was faithful then and he will be now as I continue deeper with him, appreciating the journey along the way. I feel I sometimes discredit the steps I've taken towards healing for one reason or another, and you reminded me to pause and thank God and celebrate the journey I've had and will continue on. Thank you so much for everything. That was awesome. That was just really wonderful. So I want to take some time to acknowledge you in that and thank you for sharing that. Let me get into some questions. This one is about someone who can't be alone and she constantly distracts herself. Hi, Mark. I'm a newer Christian giving my life to Jesus a little over a year ago. I was diagnosed with scrupulosity almost immediately, which I now appreciate because apparently OCD has influenced my entire life and I just didn't know it. Yeah, and there's many times where Christians can go, well, accepting Christ caused it. Like, I didn't have this battle, but that, although coming to Christ is a very big transition, and it could bring out some aspects of thinking that have been there and patterns that have been there for a while. Your materials have been amazingly helpful to both rework my view of God, how I relate to myself and others. That is so awesome. I'm doing a lot better while I'm at work or with family and friends, but I can't handle being alone. This is a very, very big theme that many, when they're recognizing their emotional mental health work, realizing the pain of being alone and the avoidance of being alone. But we're avoiding ourselves. We're avoiding being in that space where those things could get, those thoughts could get triggered, or we get hit with something. And you know what happens? We become in a place where we become afraid of ourselves. And I've been coaching people and encouraging them, we want to take you on a journey where you're not scared of yourself, because we're avoiding thoughts and we're also avoiding ourselves. When we're alone, it's like we don't have a landing place even with our own bodies and our own just emotional time when we're alone. We're used to just chasing the crisis that keeps coming up. I need constant stimulation, social media, podcasts, YouTube, to prevent me from spinning, which is honestly tiring. So, okay, what I want to first bring up is those things you go to, because I'm not going to condemn you and judge you, because that's not going to help you at all. And you may be judging and condemning yourself. I'm on my phone too much. I don't let this right. Just recognize what that is as part of avoidance patterns. I want to do some more teaching and more work on avoidance, because it's such a big part of all the battles that I'm talking to and dealing with and helping with people. We have lots of avoidance issues, many of them we don't realize. And even the subject of avoidance gets twisted and convoluted. So that's your, like, it's like a compulsive pattern that just kind of keeps going to avoid the feelings that will come up when we're alone. And what we're afraid of is the unknown. We're afraid of certain thoughts in that space coming in, which when we get alone, many who have OCD issues will, in their loneliness, they start compulsively checking. Like, I felt like as I was learning to practice time to myself, I spent most of it at just checking. Am I all right? Is everything all right? How am I feeling? How am I doing? God, what are you saying? What's happening? Is there any? I was just checking for danger. And that takes time to begin starving so that you can actually appreciate practicing being okay with times where you are by yourself. My wife and I even did a video years ago, I think, on the struggle of being by yourself or being alone. I'm even talking in the healing and freedom community about this with people too. I need constant stimulation, so those are avoidance patterns. I also seem to be using sleep as a coping mechanism. If I'm asleep, I can't spin. How many of you in the chat or in the live, wherever you are, pause for a second and answer this in your mind. You look at sleep as like, oh, this is a way for me to get away from myself and away from these battles. I'll have a break finally. That was a big thing for me when I woke up. I just couldn't wait for the day to be over. And then nighttime would come and this dread would hit me and I just wanted to go to sleep and get away from it. So it encourages you being afraid of yourself. It's a self-disconnect. And I hope that makes sense to you. And so what I want to do is help encourage some healing in that. So you don't avoid yourself. You're avoiding your thoughts, but you're also avoiding yourself, because then you don't have those time alone moments. You don't become able to reflect or able to enter into a space of love and lovingly notice some things that you might need in your journey. Instead, you're in just hypervigilance, fighting all day, but it's like an avoidance fighting. It's the flight, a fight or flight. It's the get out of here. And so for many of us, your social media stimulation is your flight. It's not fight, it's your flight. You might get into fight when you start arguing with somebody on social media or getting, teed off by something somebody's saying, but this is the flight mechanism of avoidance that's taking place. Get me out of here or get me away from this. I don't want to deal. And I don't want you turning on yourself or being separated from yourself. I want you to be aware of yourself in a loving way, not obsessive way. So I get it that you're using sleep as a coping mechanism. I get it. But these are avoidance patterns, making you afraid of your thoughts. When you're afraid of your thoughts, that empowers them right there. It's the biggest thing that inflames the power of your thoughts. Your intrusive thoughts, your whatever thoughts, they gain power when you're afraid of them. So now they become a bully. And the bully only has power when people are afraid. If no one's afraid, the bully loses power. In my book, I Will Not Fear, I call fear a terrorist. And the biggest threat terrorists bring is the impending, what could they do, fearful threat it brings on people. And yes, there could be something they do that's damaging, but really it's the intimidation that's brought about. So we're all in a journey of learning not to be afraid of God, not to be afraid of ourselves, and not to be afraid of our thoughts. And that takes practice. It takes practice. So there's a couple things I want to encourage you in. So you say you're never well rested. I try to sleep more than I should. Being awake and in my own head is rough when I'm alone, to the point of where I dread it and avoid it. Any suggestions on how to deal with these issues? Well, the first thing I would encourage you in, number one, is slow life down a little bit. Go just a little bit slower. Don't change what you're doing. Just do it slower. Walk a little slower. When you go to the grocery store, don't go as fast. Just slow down. Yeah, you got to get a bunch of groceries and get out of there. Slow down. You got things you got to do at work. Yep. Just slow down. Just bring the RPMs down a bit. Bring the engine down just a bit. Because what that's going to do is make you more relationally aware. Slowing down helps us to get into the bandwidth of relationship. You can't live in relationship connection at high speed, right? It's just like the story I told of what happened with Max. If I was just irritated, come on, let's go. And I just kept things moving because I was like, just hurry up and get over it. I'm not going to be aware of what I could do to help him. So we have to slow down in our thoughts, slow down. And what I'm saying is throughout the day, because your preparation for being alone is how you cultivate your day. It's not just like, okay, I have 5 minutes to myself. Okay, be okay with yourself. It's like, no, that starts throughout the day. And so I would encourage you, practice small moments of being by yourself without being stimulated by something. So yesterday, I just sat there and stared at the clouds. And just anything that was firing in, I just redirected back to nothingness in that moment because my brain and my heart needed to recalibrate. I didn't need to chase a bunch of thoughts. I didn't need a Mr. Fix-It. I just needed to breathe. I did a lot of exhaling. I needed to inhale, to use that analogy. So, but you need incremental practices. Take a break where you take your phone and just put it aside for a second and be a human. Everybody watching this, you need time to practice being a human. Or you just sit. Maybe you're in a car ride and you're a passenger and you just sit and look at the scenery and take it in. Right? So one, you're slowing down. Two, take moments where you're just reminding yourself to just notice life. Right? And then there's these times where these thoughts in the quiet are going to spike up. That's your practice. You're going to have to learn to practice no longer being afraid of the thought. Oh, there it is. There goes that thing again. Yeah, it's making me anxious. Yeah, I'm wanting to go into this thing. I'm wanting to hyper. And then your compulsivity's happening. And this is where the battle becomes real and where you start learning to be a loving, compassionate, gracious brother or sister in Christ, but towards yourself. I had to learn on how to be a kind person to myself, because part of why I avoided myself is I didn't like myself at all. In fact, I had carried a lot of self-hatred. That's not going to make me like alone time. Now, some of that you can uncover in my God Loves Me and I Love Myself material. But those are some suggestions that can get you on the journey. There's another avoidance kind of question somebody sent in that he says, "Hi, Mark, I'm so glad I found your ministry. Only wish I had found it years ago." I hear you. It really is so much easier to work through lessons learned by others in their walk than to have to learn them the hard way. Fight through them for years, come to the same realization or worse, and never learn them. My question to you is about words, phrases that trigger OCD. What is the best way to work through them? Well, your question brings about, you may be new to the channel, even though you said you're glad you found ministry, because there's a couple protocols that I teach about that are important in understanding how to relate to intrusive thoughts. That a word, anything could trigger an intrusive thought. You could have no trigger and it gets stimulated. But what's the best way to work through them? Some might take an ERP approach, which is a good approach, and simply listen to them or read over them and sit with them and sit with the uncomfortableness until you become numb to them. No, that's not what it is. It's not to become numb. That's a misunderstanding of it. You're not becoming numb. What you're doing is no longer letting the fear be the dominant force. Some may think at first, oh, it's numbness. No, OCDers can experience numbness when they starve their compulsions, and then they start moving into the next stage, I call the doldrums, because you're no longer feeding your drama anymore. Drama. I don't mean that like in a condescending way. The feeding the constant upheaval of chasing thoughts or compulsive acting. You starve that. It's like, what do I do with myself? So you're in this like doldrums. You don't know what to do. And that's actually where we learn how to fill our lives. I had to learn how to fill my life with what I focus on and what is good, because I've spent most of the day, if not all of it, just chasing stuff. So the goal is not numbness. It's bringing down the anxiety and its influence over that subject. And that takes practice. He said, that doesn't seem quite right to me. It's exactly how an OCDer talks. Because we're obsessed with doing the right thing, but we don't understand what we're actually needing. And many times when we practice starving our compulsions, we think we're doing something wrong. That's a classic aspect of withdrawal symptoms that kicks up. So being bombarded with stress and uneasiness until you are worn out That's not exposure therapy either. That's not ERP, is being bombarded with stress until you're totally worn out. That's not it either. So it's a lot of misunderstanding, because you also have a window of tolerance, right? Siegel taught about this. I think it's some good understanding of like what your emotions can take. So if I'm talking to somebody, I'm getting a sense of a window of tolerance. And if somebody can't even get out of the house, I'm not going to be like, all right, so you're going to go to the park and you're going to like, okay, we're going to start here, right? Or if the person's like, I can't even get out of bed. Oh, okay. We're going to start there, right? And there's a window of tolerance is that like where beyond that, you start hitting your over peak kind of level and overwhelm happens. And now you're no longer being able to walk through it. You're just in survival mode now. You might check out, you might numb out. So what we need is we need to just stretch the membrane a little bit, okay? Many of you, in a metaphorical sense, with your mental health, you're going to the gym on day one, you're racking up the bench press, you're shoving that thing up, and you're injuring yourself and wondering why you're injured. That's not how it works. And what works in the gym also is true in our emotional life and our spiritual life, is that it's incremental, one stage, one step after another. It's just consistently doing that. So there's exposure in a clinical setting, and then there's the IRL version of it, which I feel like I relate to more in the sense of like when this stuff happens, you need tools in knowing how to navigate through it when it's happening in the moment. And so if you're constantly on overwhelm, it's not going to help. You need incremental. So it's like the person who has, just using as an example, phobia of snakes. You don't throw them into a pile of snakes and go, okay, we're going to do exposure. They're going to tilt. They're going to go into a massive panic attack, and they're not going to be able to have a sense of their faculties. You start with a picture of a snake. Here it is. A picture of a non-venomous, harmless snake, right? Or something like that. Well, that's too much. I get overwhelmed. Some people can even be at that. Okay, we're just going to mention the word snake. It triggers that thing, okay? Now we're stretching the membrane. We come back to it. We come back to it. And we come back to it. And this is the part that Christian and non-Christians need understanding of. I say Christians because Christians don't give room for the journey and the practice. Studies show that you need exposure therapy in the same area. I want to say the stat was like 25 to 27 times, and it starts to show results. And we don't realize that because we checked out after session one. We got overwhelmed, and then we felt like we failed, and this is never going to happen. We spiral. And it's like, no, this takes practice. It takes practice of facing it and working through it. But you have to be aware of when you hit the overwhelm factor, it's like, okay, just bring it back a notch, but don't check out of it. Stay in it because you need to develop resilience. And this is the main theme in the New Testament, is developing a resilient, persevering, overcoming heart. And how are you going to have that unless you have something to overcome? So for OCDers, your response to thoughts, that's your overcoming journey. How you relate to your thoughts, how you relate to fear, that's where you're at. Learning to get rooted in grace, learning to get rooted in its love. It's a day-to-day, hour-by-hour, moment-to-moment journey that you're on. That's your discipleship. But it's not just because many people who come into the content I teach, they love my teachings on love, but they just want to just like sit in it and bask in it. And I'm like, yes, it is wonderful, but you're also going to have to step out tomorrow and face some things where you're triggered by a word, a sentence, a person, a thing, or a theme. But it doesn't even need to be something that triggers. It just shows up, and you need a new response now to this, where fear, you're not going to be the boss anymore. And so this isn't just for obsessors, though. Do you all understand this? This is for all of us. I've been teaching this for 20 years at least, even when I would go speak in churches. I was like, we have a fear factor we are not dealing with. We are living in massive avoidance, and we have comforts as Americans, Western, or wherever you live. There's a lot of comforts that we have, and it's hypnotized us to not being resilient and like knowing we got to face this fear. so that it no longer has power over me anymore. So anyways, I'll get into another question here on separation anxiety. And this young lady is 25, and she's realizing I've got some intense separation anxiety. I know you've already answered many questions about general anxiety, but I haven't seen this one on separation anxiety yet, especially with my parents. Forgive me if you've already answered this one. I'm having a hard time finding proper advice for treating or getting through it without taking meds. So I hope you can help me. It is a modern mindset of that if you have any anxiety, any depression, the first thought is I need to go on medication. It's just kind of where everybody's at. And so we don't realize there's so much that we can learn and grow in. We kind of just go to that. But this is actually a very big issue that I'm seeing in the 20-somethings. I'm doing a lot of talking about equipping our 20-something-year-olds to get equipped in their adult life, in their adult world, to move away, to move out of mom and dad's house, to get on with your life, to move on. I needed that. It wasn't, many of you know, it wasn't until I sat in a counselor's office, he looked at me and goes, you should probably move out of your parents' house. Hadn't even dawned on me. It just shows you where I'm at. So there's hope for you. But you got some work to do. I've been doing a lot of talking and equipping. Speaking of stretching the membrane, of stretching that capacity, because there's definitely some things that have gone on where we've swung in the other direction. We recognize brokenness, pain, trauma, and all this stuff that generations before went through. But then in our parenting, we swung the other way, and it didn't necessarily establish resilience in our children. No judgment, no condemnation, because we have these swings that go on. We're learning, just keep learning. So a big part of that is affecting those in the 20s category, and they're recognizing it. That hey, I'm needing some more tenacity. So you said I'm a 25-year-old female, and for my whole life I was homeschooled. Now, being homeschooled doesn't necessarily mean that's a big part of the problem, but however, within that, what's the culture at the home in homeschooling? Because there can be a bubble world that develops and not a sense of like, okay, we got to put this into application. I encourage all homeschoolers. I admire what you do. We've done it ourselves, but you have to be creative in finding ways to stretch your kids' muscles relationally, interaction-wise, for preparing them for their living as adults, as overcomers. So you say I was extroverted and had friends as a kid. But when I hit the teen years, this is an interesting statement. You said, everyone disappeared from my life and I ended up living alone with my parents for a few years and barely any outside contact. So I the questions I would ask is, the barely outside contact, was that your parents reinforcing that? Were they very like, just stay here, stay here, stay here, the world? Did your parents communicate the world is dangerous? You know, many of you can ask yourselves that. Did your parents communicate to you the world is dangerous? And that was a heavy prevailing mindset. We just have to be aware of that. We have to be aware as parents of what's the message we're conveying about what we're releasing them into, right? And I would also want to ask, what, everyone disappeared from your life. So what happened there? Because then that's now affecting your heart. That's affecting you in how you feel about yourself. And those were areas, if I was sitting down with you, I'd have some discussion around how did that affect you? Because that's kind of like it can just kind of cave everything in. I just had 2 internet friends and 1 best friend who lived right down the road. Now, the best friend who lived down the road is great. 2 internet friends, I do throw flags on that, by the way, in the sense of like, internet friends. You know what I mean? Yeah. People say internet friends. It's like, I mean, we're moving into AI where there'll be a person there and there's no one there. It's just a computer. But anyway, people posing as things, something like that. It's just, sorry, that's my parental flag thing going on here. But I'm not saying that that's the case. But if you have 1 best friend, that's awesome, by the way. So don't feel that in order for you to have friends, you need a crowd of people. One really great friend, one decent friend is awesome. Maybe I need to just pause on that for a moment. Remind everybody, all of you that are spinning about how many friends you have or don't have, just one person. One person. So you say, but now you're in a place where you're finding it borderline impossible to leave your parents. Okay, it's not impossible, but where you're at in your development is telling you that. You're 25. You've got some stretching to do. So we can look at where you're at. We can condemn you, beat you up. What's the matter with you? And there's some, I see a lot of that online. And I'm like, this doesn't help. This doesn't help younger generations. Like, we need to find ways to empower them. And I want to empower you. The first thing I want to empower you with is it's not impossible. You said, ever since I was a kid, if I go on a sleepover or sleep anywhere that isn't where my parents are, I have anxiety attacks and cry uncontrollably. It's embarrassing and scary, so I avoid it at all costs. I've had to work through this and probably continue to with both my kids. And this is a big place of work. And I mention this a lot. I talk about this a lot. But loving my kids continually, intentionally, however, finding those stretching moments, because what I can call love can also prevent them from having an overcoming moment. And I think this is one of the areas that parenting has struggled with, because we spent too much time reacting to our fears. So all the things that happened in your childhood stimulates this fear, and now we're parenting out of that. And parenting is a real signal to work on those issues in our heart, to release our children to the Lord, to trust God, but to also find ways to stretch. So you're 25, living with your parents. I don't get the impression your parents stretched you. So you're going to have to, in love, find opportunities for you to stretch yourself. Now, step one is not moving out of your parents' house. That's not step one. It's going to be there. Step one is you finding what's the next logical step in me stretching my relational muscles, right? Because picking up on this anxiety you at sleepovers or stuff like that, your parents need to pick up on that and go, okay, hey, no big deal. We love you. It's all right. We had to come get you in the middle of the night, pick you up or whatever, kind of things. But then it's like, okay, we can't keep feeding this. We need to give you opportunities where you're in settings where you're not with us, where you enjoy it. You feel your independence. You connect to that, right? And otherwise, their fears are going to way infect their parenting. So you're going to need to have opportunities where you're stretching yourself. Some people I talk to, like I said, they don't even get out of the house. I'm like, you need to get out of the house. You need to go to the store and on your own. Well, I don't have a car. Okay, you're going to walk. You have somewhere you can walk to. Well, we'll go into the store. That's just too much. Okay, you're going to walk to the corner and you're going to wave at the neighbor and say hello. You know what I mean? Right? This is where recognizing where we're not developed. We're not going to condemn ourselves in it, because if I condemn you in it, I can't serve your heart. So you're going to find simple things to stretch yourself, and especially relationally, where it's not a full, I need my parents to be around me. You mean in situations where you're not with them and the fear spikes and you work through it and you go, look, I did it. And then you do it again. Now, in our upbringing, Melissa and I had so many times where our parents weren't around, and I'm not sure they knew where we were, sure what was going on with us, right? There was so much neglect that but we had a lot of practice in survival. I was telling a story the other day where I was in my young teens and I was taking a city bus by myself. Mm-hmm. I would never let my kids go on a city bus at their age. And I was reflecting on, I took a bus from Hartford, Connecticut to downtown Hartford, and then transferred. I think I found one of the packets and transferred. My parents are both at work, and during the summer. And I would, because I wanted to go help out with some stuff at church that was in East Hartford. And so then I'd take the bus over to East Hartford. No one at the church was like, hey, how did you get here?
Right. You know what though? Isn't there a part of that back then though? I don't know. Not that it was safer. I don't know. There's a
right. So I actually feel like that strengthened me.
Right.
To when I go and like even in life, there's all these steps where in getting married or having even having a house. Mm-hmm. Like what do you do when the hot water heater goes, or what do you do?
Right.
Like no one knows how to do. But I'm okay with like, okay, I got to ask a question. I got to figure something out. I got to ask YouTube Dad and search it. I got to do this thing, right? Because the good news at that stage is developed a sense of resilience. However, a lot of fear that can get embedded, and then it's infecting our parenting. So you said here, I have anxiety attacks and cry uncontrollably. It's embarrassing and scary, so I avoid it at all costs. What are you avoiding? Avoiding any kind of thing that hits anxiety. This is where you're needing some encouraging love in your life. Girl, you have what it takes. You have what it takes. You can do it, but it's going to take some practice, and it's going to take you being kind to yourself and encouraging yourself. So you said, it's embarrassing and scary. I avoid it at all costs. There's your avoidance. It even prevented me from getting married and moving out because the fear, anxiety, and guilt of leaving my parents cripples me. How can I get through this? I have a job now, and I'm going to learn how to drive for the first time. Okay, so that gives me a sense of where you're at. Okay, you're just getting your license now. You're going to drive. So start doing that. Drive, go to work. Mm-hmm. Drive, go run some errands, go be around. This is your discipleship. This is your area of growth, is learning. God's not giving you the spirit of fear, but a power, love, and sound mind. That perfect love will cast out fear. He loves you, but you're going to need to practice this. You're going to practice developing confidence that you have what it takes to do this.
May I ask, somebody asked along with it, since you're still answering the question, that is separation anxiety the same as codependency?
No. It can tie over, but it's not the same. Separation anxiety is more of just it goes back to parents, but it's more of an anxiousness of not being with somebody. Codependency is a whole world of enmeshment and ways of relating. Yes, they can cross over, but they're not, what's the word, synonymous? Mm-hmm. Look at me, I remembered a word.
Look at you, babe. Your brain is working today. Way to go.
So you see the cost of it. It got in the way of you stepping out and getting married. So you see the cost of not doing anything. Because sometimes I need to share that with people. Map out what life would be like if you did nothing. Like look at the future, and if you did nothing about your battles, don't do any work or any development, where would your life be? And sometimes you need a sober look at that. And so moments like that, okay, I lost a relationship there because of this. Don't condemn yourself, but sober it. Be sober in this. Sober up. And so that you see, now is the time. Today's the day where I can take a step. All right. So I have a new job. Okay, you mentioned that. I'm planning on trying to desensitize myself when I can drive by going places alone. That's a start. I have mixed feelings on desensitize, on that word. I get what's being communicated. It's more like resensitizing. It's probably not a word. I just made it up.
It's all right. Can do that too.
But I think that's, if I could just be honest, what you need is a dad. Yeah.
Amen.
You need a dad that goes, hey, we're going to get in the car, we're going to go drive. Like 10 years ago.
Builds confidence.
Yep. And constant, and like I said, the fear factor is intense with Gen Z and Gen Alpha. It's intense for a variety of reasons, And maybe 20 years from now, we'll have it all mapped out. We're still in the thick of it, trying to figure out what's hitting them, what's going after them. We need to love our kids tenaciously, but we need to cheer them on.
And equip them.
In taking steps. Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay, but anyways, you have any more advice, insight? I would really appreciate it. Thank you so much for your talks and videos. Yeah, I think that It's practice, practice, practice. Keep doing it. Keep doing it. All my 20-something-year-olders, you need practice in taking steps. Go get a bank account. Go get your license. Go do a job interview. Go have a conversation. Talk to the person behind the deli counter. How you doing today? How's your week going? Have shallow conversations. Doesn't have to all to be deep. Have just low-level conversations. This is when I first started seeing this show up it was in my pastoring. I had a young lady Melissa and I were meeting with, and I'd have to do this thing where I said, okay, this is what we're going to do. I want you to leave the room and come back in. We're going to have a practice conversation.
Mm-hmm. That's a true statement.
Yeah. She came in. I said, hey, how you doing? My name's Mark. And we practiced. And this is where I saw firsthand, this is what we're needing. We need like practice. We need opportunities. You just keep stretching, keep stretching, keep stretching. Can't emphasize this enough. Super important, super important. I'm going to take another break and then I'll come back. I got a question here I'm going to look at that the person writing this in says that they treat the Bible like it's a magic 8-ball. Very interesting title to it. And looking through this, yeah, I can see what they're saying. Hi, Mark. Thank you for all you do. Your material's been life-changing. I suggest your work to almost every person in my life. That's very kind of you. Thank you. That's awesome. My question has to do with how I grew up reading the Bible and was taught what it means. Now, as an adult, it has turned into intense scrupulosity and panic every time I read the Bible. Growing up, I was always taught that whenever I have a question or decision in life, join the swim team, go to college, which college, do I date this person? Do I date them now? Do I talk to that friend? Do I tell that person? I mean, any question and any decision. I was taught to go sit down, read the Bible, and whatever phrase was highlighted or applicable, like go, do not go, you will be destroyed, like Israelite stuff, it applied to me and my situation. So if this is true, exactly as you are relaying it, this is a very, very, dysfunctional is not even the word. It's a very unbiblical way to communicate the scriptures. If your church is really communicating this, it's not only dysfunctional, it's wrong and very unhealthy. This is going to breed a lot of mental health problems, by the way. A lot. It is going to breed scrupulosity in a lot of the congregants. I've never known anything different This is how much church operates, my entire family. As this has progressed, and I've learned this may not be the correct way to view the Bible, I've noticed I struggle to understand what the Bible then is for, if not to give me certain and specific answers. It has turned into major analysis paralysis when I make decisions. An ability to even make a decision. Hearing God becomes my only goal in life. Extreme relationship OCD thinking. Anytime I will go into the Bible, I will hear that I am doing everything wrong and I will be destroyed because I picked the wrong person. How do I unlearn this and step into what the Bible is actually for? Make decisions not based on exact wording and find freedom from this pattern in my Bible reading. I'm going to do my best to try to keep my answer concise because I could talk for hours about this subject because I feel that there's a form of this that a lot of modern Christianity lives in. We're trying to find this narrative of what is God saying in some framework of obedience, disobedience, or a sense of like what he's commanding us to go, where's he going, what's he doing, and it's affecting us in a very microscopic kind of way that I'm very concerned about. I think we're teaching people to read into so much. We're getting down to micro decisions, trying to find what God is saying, and it goes against the law of liberty because the liberty is in the gospel. It's your ability to make decisions and decide. And I think that from my perspective, this whole like, read the Bible, you got to find the command thing. In my personal opinion, I think this has been influenced as a control move. I think it's like a way to like get in people's thinking, this like control mechanism. I think it allows people then to say, well, I feel like the Lord is saying this over your life and that. But then it relays a controlling aspect of God. And I push back with believers. God is in control, but he's not controlling. Big difference. And yes, that opens up mystery, doesn't it? Of who God is and how he relates, right? But I think that this kind of mindset, it strips you of a liberty of making decisions. It puts God into every decision, and it gets us into these patterns that I actually don't see in Scripture. I see in the Old Testament where the Bible says David inquired of the Lord, but he didn't inquire of the Lord of, many things. It was usually the battles, which was a big thing. His whole country, his whole nation of people going to war against somebody. And this was actually a clear theme that the Lord was working in Israel because they were going to the promised land. They were taking the land. They were conquering it. They had to go to war. This is an Old Testament context of how the Lord was working. It's a very clear thing that was going on, right? But other than that, I don't see this pattern of checking and checking. I mean, David didn't ask the Lord who to marry. That's for sure. There's no, in the Bible, there was no kind of checking at all. It was like, oh, bring her to me. Oh, by the way, what's her name? It was just based on a first time encounter. It would terrify people today, wouldn't it? Right? And so many decisions, big decisions. They didn't say, oh, they got reassurance from God about it. I'm not against praying about it, but I think, in my personal opinion, modern day Christians, we are compulsively checking for God's will over steps we're taking. Like we're overdoing it because we're afraid of missing God. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of messing up. So we live like it's all on our shoulders. So we procrastinate. We don't make a decision. I'm seeing this everywhere. OCD, not OCD, doesn't matter. I'm seeing this everywhere. Well, the Lord hasn't given me a release. I don't know because the Lord is checking with the Lord. But I was just seeking the Lord and I was just asking the Lord, what's he saying? What's he doing? And I think what the Lord was doing was they're just weaving this whole narrative. Then this is what I do. I go, so what do you want to do? They don't even know. And I'm not saying living apart from God. That's not what I'm talking about. You just decide, and God, you're the boss of God. That's not even close to where I'm going. But we don't realize the beauty of we live and move and have our being. And I didn't live in the freedom to make decisions. I was like, God, is this, what is this, what's this? So Christians, we have this thing we say, we go, I'm going to pray about it. And usually, usually what that means is they're going to go sit there and check all the pros and cons, and they're going to introspect, and they're going to and then if they're very prone to listening to fear, they're going to be like checking their fears. I don't have peace about it. I prayed about it. I just don't have peace about it. We've lost our ability to let our yes be yes and our no be no. Right? Just make a decision. Make a decision and step forward in it. What if I make the wrong decision? Okay. Again, I don't know why I feel the need to do this, but I have a vulnerability to the contrarian thoughts whenever I'm talking. I know, and that's been my own journey of learning how to which ones to not address, right? I'm not saying just live impulsively and just whatever, but I'm not seeing that problem. I'm seeing compulsive over-checking, over-analysis, overthinking. And if you want a word, it is make a decision and step into it. Because this is another thing you've been taught as a Christian, and it's a lie. This is what you've been taught. If God's in it, it's going to work out perfectly, there'll be no problems. Work out perfectly, no problems. You've been lied to. You've been lied to. Like, no, you'll have problems. You'll have stuff happening. But you learn in that to you learn God's ways. We started many years ago. Many of you know the story where we started a small church. It wasn't like your ideal setup or startup at all. But we started it. I didn't feel this sense of like God going, I want you to do it. It was a sense of like, this seems like right now, this seems like the step to do. And we did that for 5-6 years. And we ended up leaving it, and we had to close the church. Did we miss God? No, we had amazing years in it. I learned so much in it. We don't do enough work on seeing God in our stuff that didn't work out. So you go, well, that friend didn't work out. I should have never picked that friend. That was a failure. No, the interpretation's off in this stuff. So then on top of it, we're doing this kind of stuff. This is all. So I want to get to your question, because you're like, how do I unlearn this? Well, you're going to have to start by starving your compulsion. Starving your compulsion, not compulsively. Starving your compulsion to do that checking. You're going to have to go, okay, join the swim team. Do I want to join the swim team? No, I don't want to join the swim team. Okay. I want to join the swim team. Okay, join it. Make a decision and go. And you're going to have to starve it, and you're going to feel like you're disobeying God. That's what's going to kick up. And you're going to feel anxious. You're going to feel God's left you. And your OCD is going to tell you committed the unpardonable sin. Now you really did it. Now you're really going to hell. And it's going to push. And it's going to tap. It's going to add more. It's going to add more. I'm telling you, this is what's going to happen. But that's part of the healing, is detoxing that behavior of, okay, God, I want to learn how to see just the scriptures for what it is in your heart. And if I'm in these inroads, I'm not getting your heart. So I'm not going to let that settle into my root system, because I'm relearning. Because when you read the Old Testament, it's the wild, wild west of all kinds of crazy stories. I'm in it right now. I'm in this story in Kings, where a prophet goes, and is it Jeroboam or Rehoboam? Jeroboam. And the prophet goes, and this whole thing happens, and then another prophet lies to him, tricks him, lies to him. The dude does what he says, and then gets judged. A lion attacks him and kills him. It's like, wait, this is nuts, right? But it's like we're learning in time, like, okay, I don't know that I have context here. I have what I have in front of me. Let it wash through me. I don't know that I got it. It's okay. I don't know that I got something out of this. Okay, it's okay. It's more like, what just happened? Kind of thing. Somebody else wrote about that too in another question about certain stories, and they're constantly triggered by stories and stuff like that. because we weren't there. We didn't see it. We weren't happen. So there's information we're missing. There's context we're missing. What is there is meant for our learning. Okay, what can I see from this? What can I learn from this? But for you, there's a lot of detoxing of that legalistic compulsivity. You have like a whole religious legalism that you're going to need to come out of. It can't be done. But when you step into the grace and freedom of it, at first it feels too good to be true. But you're going to need to just make very practical day-to-day. Do I date this person? Go ahead and date him. Right? Get my book on the myth of the perfect one to help you face your fears along the way. But I see this problem in a lot of decision making. We want to hear God, but really what we want is we want reassurance that this thing won't fail. Because if it fails, which failure is distorted in itself, and that's the end. Start a business, it doesn't work out, then I'm a failure. No, you're going to learn a whole lot. I take this step, and many of you need to recognize that God is a rewarder of faith. It doesn't say perfect faith. Because if God is a rewarder of perfect faith, every single person in the scriptures is completely disqualified from being shown as examples because they all messed up. We got to stop disconnecting from that reality and realize we are learning in our journey. You had a relationship, didn't work out, learn from it. You had a job, you got fired, learn from it. You got this thing that happened, learn from it. And let's stop putting this heavy God stamp on every little, well, he willed because he wanted to do. Sometimes you can just go, I don't know. I don't know what God's doing, but I'm learning. I'm learning along the way. I think that we have to starve the compulsive, what is God saying and what is God doing, that I think is working against a lot of Christians from simply just taking a step. And that's what I have to say about that. Mm-hmm. So we're going to wind this down, and it's the top of the hour, and I'm hungry. So
Me too, boo.
Do you have anything, my love?
Just to say thank you to a couple people for some super chats. Ellen Mendoza, thank you so much.
Oh, that's awesome.
Renee Boker, thank you for your videos. We always find them helpful. Thank you for your super chat. And Time Walker became a heart healing overcomer.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So good.
Yeah.
Well, my love.
It was great today.
Let's eat. And looking forward to winding this day down. I pray this was a blessing. I know I went on a number of tangents, but I pray that
it was so good.
It helps and encourages people.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it did.
Yeah. I love you.
I love you.
Yeah.
Let's do this.
This was nice. Mm-hmm. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Lord willing, and the creek don't rise. This is your brother from another mother.
And your sister from another mister.
Saying we'll be back with more insights for your healing and freedom journey. But in the meantime,
are we out?
Love you, Daddy.